was the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I tend to think this cast has one of the most outstanding assemblies of improvisational comedy talent, and you don't always get to see that in a half-hour comedy. So watching you guys work, I'm familiar with a lot of your other work, Aziz from Human Giant, Amy from SNL and the movies you've done, and I know you've worked with the UCB. So I'm just wondering, how does that affect, I know, of course the show is scripted, but how does this wealth of improvisational talent affect getting the show done? Does it make it easier, harder?
Easier, for sure. The style of the show takes into account improvisation and kind of relies on it. And there's so much talent in the improvisation of this cast that we started doing things that we didn't do on The Office, like these jump cut sequences, like for example in the hunting trip that you guys just saw, when she's coming up with trying to persuade the ranger that she's just an empty-headed woman who did it on purpose. That wasn't scripted. We just basically said, Amy, this is the situation, go, and we did it in the pilot, and we've done it a number of times.
Well, it was really Dean who did it to us, because there was what was it in the pilot?
It was when we were shooting that, when she kept going into Ron's office to see.
Oh, that's right.
If he had made up his mind yet, and she just kept going in and going in and going in, and all of them were funny.
But you had an idea to jump cut before the show was shot too, right? I mean,
well, we were trying to think of things of how we could do it different from The Office, and that was one of them. It was just like, it kind of breaks that wall. Even though it's a documentary, it kind of gives us that opportunity to, add more comedy.
Yeah, I mean, but I remember the first time going into your office and you show. I think it was something that Aziz had done. I don't remember which one. Oh, I know. It was maybe not the first time, but it was when you were doing the things about Marlene Griggs Nope has never hired a male prostitute. Marlene Griggs Nope has never, whatever that was. Mm-hmm. And there were like 9 of them that we liked, and Dean just like put them right next to each other. And then it was kind of like, oh, that seems funny. Let's just play them all. But that was Dean's idea, yeah.
So clearly that sort of improvisation works a lot better with the single camera thing. What is the most important thing you guys keep in mind? I guess it's really for all of you, when you're editing the episodes.
What do we keep in mind?
Besides, it has to be funny.
Performance, right? You always edit to performance.
I will always cut for performance. I always cut whatever makes me laugh. It comes to the point where I almost, at first you don't care what it looks like. Just cut it and make it funny. And then, and if you can make it look a little bit better, you do, but always cut for performance. And then the problem that we always come across is, it's a good problem, is that you end up with this like really incredible 25-minute show, but it has to be 21:30 or something like that. But we start out with like a 35, 38-minute show, okay. And then you whittle it down, and the closer you get to the time, the harder it gets. You really do end up losing things that you absolutely enjoy and love, and things that make the show great, but there are those restrictions. So that's the most difficult part.
Mock documentary format is so often made in the editing room, and that's how like a documentary is. And there's so many choices that you have at any one moment, because they're such good improvisers. We have the line that was in the script, and then we generally have several other choices that they did. And so if we ever get into trouble in the editing room, we're like, well, did they ever do anything else? And the answer is almost always yes.
Saves us every time. Wow. Something doesn't work or whatever, and then we'll go, God, I think this scene was shot differently before. They did this improv, and you go look at it and you're like, oh my God. Because when you take a 38-minute show and turn it into a 21-minute show, you tell a different story. And with all the improvs that all the actors give us, it really helps us make that different story.
When we were doing the episode with Ron and Tammy episode, we had created a situation in which Nick Offerman and his real-life wife hated each other, and we wrote a bunch of truly horrifying insults to have Ron say about his ex-wife, and then Offerman just went crazy and beat all of everything we'd written. easily beat it in terms of both humor and horrifyingness, I think. Do you remember one of them that wasn't in the cut that you did? Just I don't know. I want you to say it.
During the repulsive hog thing?
Yeah.
Tammy's vagina is like the tractor beam from the Death Star. If it was where Jabba the Hutt's poop hole would be.
Improvisation.
We're in a museum, for God's sakes.
Diane, I would like to point out that the writing is so strong on the show that often people think we're improvising when we're not, which is a nice compliment, actually.
Thanks.
It's true.
The improvising is like a tie that we have in the closet, but they provide the wardrobe. I mean, when we read the scripts, because improvisation is more exciting to talk about, but when we get these scripts, we are all floored. Like, we have a room full of super smart writers, and a show like this can never happen without incredible writing.